Well, my current religious affiliation right now could be considered atheist. Pretty much nothing's proven. So all I have to go on is maybe a few loose theories here and there, and since they can't be proven, I can't really fully live by them. So I just live life on this plane. If that's too bad for other people, that's too bad. But yeah, I pretty much just live on this plane and go day by day. The religious tradition in which I was raised was mainly Baptist, with some exposure to AME churches. My journey in belief was a relatively short one because I spent a lot of my time just ignoring it. Like I say, I grew up Baptist, so, you know, a typical family setting with us was, you know, if my mom wasn't taking me to church, then my grandmother was. Or, you know, if neither one of them was, then my dad was, or somebody else, because a lot of my family was just that deep in the church. However, there was a brief moment where we didn't go to church, and every Sunday I got to stay up and watch cartoons, and that was sweet. Now, moving on from that, you know, there's the constant religious exposure as, you know, as I go from family member to family member, everybody's like, hey, go to church. And then sometime in junior high, I found paganism, and that rocked out for a little minute. But then having some sort of religious guilt, being indoctrinated with my family and so forth, I went back to Christianity and didn't know why I was there. So I went back to ignoring it. So sometime after I went to my religion affiliated college, I decided, you know what? I don't seem to be a Christian. And once I made that discovery, I just kind of stopped thinking about it altogether. And shortly after that, I pretty much, after having a conversation with a good friend of mine, I decided, well, I'm pretty much living atheist right now. Why not just say it? Certain questions not getting answered. There were moral disputes I had within myself that I just, me always being a pretty moral person, it's just like, well, you know, it started with little things like being unequally yoked. So I would ask, well, why can't I hang out with this person just because they're of a different faith? That can't be right. You mean everybody else is going to hell except us? That doesn't sound very inclusive. That doesn't sound right. That sounds actually kind of stupid. And nobody could ever give me an answer for that, even at my tender age. They just kind of brush it off, and you know, a little kid knows when they're being brushed off. And so, having been brushed off at that time, I kept asking questions, and then nobody ever had an answer for me. Christians, it's because you don't have answers for people for things that you don't know yourselves, and you keep brushing them off, that it kind of makes them not like that. So, for the most part, it's just like when people have too many questions and they're all unanswered, you say go by faith. That's an unknown variable. And with that unknown variable, you can draw any conclusion, really. I'd say I was my most devout when I was a small child, because being a small child, you'll do anything for attention and acceptance. So I was my most devout when I was a very, very small child. I'd say kindergarten, first grade, that kind of thing. Yeah, as soon as I got to where I could start questioning things of my own free mind, I pretty much wasn't devout anymore. I was even more dedicated to cartoons. From my previous position, pretty much all I've kept is kind of a loose theory of karma, where if I put enough good stuff out there into the universe, eventually some good will come back to me, but that all kind of goes back and relates to the golden rule. You know, treat people as you want to be treated. I mean, mainly because it's pretty much a weight lifted off my shoulder as I gradually begin to care less and less. Because, in essence, I know I'm a good person and all the other stuff that religion helps you find out about yourself. It's just I really don't need conflicting doctrines to back that up. Well, granted that I'm not very vocal about my views until now. I haven't really experienced any backlash from it, but you know, anytime I bother to question friends or family. It's really sad. They tend to go off a little bit. Like, you know, you ask them like a plain question that's outside of the norm, and you can tell they start getting a little more frazzled and all that. And it's just like, well, I'm just posing a question to you. What's the problem? So yeah, granted that I'm doing this now, and that pretty much just puts it out in the air. It's just like, I probably will get backlash, especially if they see this video. If so, okay, I can pretty much say, hey, that's fine. Because at this point in life, if you can't deal with somebody the way they are, despite what they believe, especially if they're not causing you any kind of harm or pushing their beliefs onto you, there's really something wrong. And I'm personally okay with that, because if I'm not doing any harm, you shouldn't do any harm to me. I don't really try to bring people on a similar journey. If anything, the only thing I try to do is just get people to just be open-minded. There's absolutely nothing wrong with being open-minded and being aware that other people think differently. And honestly, if you think there's a problem with people thinking differently, there's something wrong with you. The only advice I have to anybody that's seeking a change is go ahead and make a change. All you have to do is just start researching in the direction that you're trying to go. If you have an idea, just expand it. So to anybody that's looking to make a change like I did, all I did was I started reading a whole bunch of things and start learning myself. Once you know yourself and what you're truly interested in, that's pretty much how you go about anything. You find an interest within yourself, and then you study it. You branch out. So me having done so much social interaction in certain things, and then reading certain things, I just kind of came up to my own conclusion. You can do the same. Personally, I have nothing against anybody that doesn't believe the exact thing I do. If it works for you, that's awesome. If you're doing amazing things for yourself or the community, or both, that's awesome, and I applaud you. I applaud you for everything you do that's positive. The only opposition I have is when you have a negative influence on yourself or others. That I cannot condone, I can't tolerate. So if you're out here pushing for something that somebody else is completely against, and you're just pushing at it, you're not really understanding that they don't want that. They believe something different, and that's like kind of forcing a circle into a square hole. That's not gonna work, you know. Don't do that.